The massive flagship of the stellar dominion cut through the darkness of space like a blade, its silver hull reflecting the distant starlight. Captain Reed stood on the bridge, his tall frame casting a shadow across the holographic display before him. The screen showed a cluster of old warning beacons floating in space, their red lights blinking lazily against the void. Primitive technology, Reed muttered, his four-fingered hand waving dismissively at the display. Probably left behind by some long-dead civilization. First Officer Grant approached the captain's platform, her steps careful and measured on the polished floor. "Sir, these warning markers match no known species in our database. Perhaps we should claim this territory for the Dominion." Reed interrupted, his lips curling into a smile. "Our scans show rich mineral deposits in this sector. The Council will be pleased." The bridge crew worked silently at their stations, their gray uniforms matching the metallic walls of the ship. Behind the flagship, 5 warships moved in perfect formation, their engines glowing with purple energy. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, "we're detecting unusual energy patterns from the warning beacons. They appear to be actively scanning our ships." Reed laughed, the sound echoing across the bridge. "Active scans from this ancient technology? Impossible. Our shields are beyond anything these relics could comprehend." The fleet pushed deeper into the restricted space, passing more warning beacons. Each one lit up as the ships passed, their ancient-looking frames concealing technology far more advanced than the aliens suspected. Deep within an asteroid field, hidden sensors tracked the invading fleet. Data streamed through quantum networks, traveling faster than light to reach distant command centers. In the void between stars, dormant defense platforms silently powered up, their presence masked by advanced stealth fields. "Captain," Grant said, studying her display with growing concern, "these asteroids, their orbits seem too perfect. Natural phenomena often create patterns." First Officer Reed replied confidently, "Your caution, while admirable, is unnecessary. We are the Stellar Dominion. We have conquered 12 systems. Nothing in this backwater sector could possibly threaten us." The fleet approached a particularly large asteroid, its surface dotted with what appeared to be primitive mining equipment. Small vessels moved between the rocks, their designs simple and utilitarian. "Life signs detected," the sensor officer announced. "Approximately 50 beings on that mining station. Technology level appears to be pre-space age industrial." Reed's smile grew wider. "Perfect. A simple display of force should be enough to establish our dominance. Prepare thee." Sudden alarms blared across the bridge, cutting off the captain's words. The tactical officer's hands flew across his console. "Sir, energy signatures. There." "Impossible," Reed whispered, watching as the seemingly primitive mining equipment began to transform. Panels slid away, revealing advanced weapon systems. The asteroids themselves seemed to come alive, their surfaces rippling as hidden installations activated. "Multiple targets," the tactical officer shouted. "They're everywhere. The asteroid field. It's not natural. It's a constructed defense network." First Officer Grant's voice shook slightly. "Sir, we're being scanned again. But these readings, they're beyond anything in our database." Reed stood frozen, watching as more and more defense platforms emerged from their hiding places. The primitive warning beacons now pulsed with increasing intensity, their true purpose becoming clear, not to protect others from what lay within, but to protect what lay within from others. "Sir," Grant said quietly, "I believe we know why this sector was marked as restricted." Before Reed could respond, a new signal cut through their communication channels. The voice that spoke was calm, professional, and carried an unmistakable note of authority. "Attention, vessels of the Stellar Dominion. You have entered restricted human space. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. This is your only warning." The bridge fell silent as the crew realized their terrible mistake. They hadn't discovered an abandoned sector ripe for conquest. They had just invaded humanity's doorstep, and the door was now closing behind them. Commander Wilson stood in the mining outpost control room, watching the alien fleet through reinforced windows. His weathered face showed no sign of fear as he studied the 6 warships that had entered human space. Behind him, his crew worked calmly at their stations, their movements unhurried despite the threat looming outside. "Status report," Wilson called out, his voice steady. "Defense systems are fully operational, sir," Lieutenant Banks responded from her console. "The automated platforms are ready. Earth Defense Force has acknowledged our signal and estimates arrival in 15 minutes. Wilson nodded, watching as the alien flagship grew larger in their view. Its design was aggressive, all sharp angles and weapon ports, clearly built to intimidate. The mining equipment around their outpost continued its slow dance through the asteroid field, maintaining their cover as a primitive operation. "They're hailing us, sir," Banks announced. "Standard frequency, basic audio-visual. Let's hear what they have to say." Wilson straightened his simple work uniform. "Keep our transmitter set to basic mode. No need to show our hand just yet." The main screen flickered to life, revealing Captain Reed's confident face. The alien commander's expression was one of practiced superiority as he looked down at what he assumed was a primitive mining crew. "Attention, mining facility." Reed's voice boomed through the speakers. "This sector now belongs to the Stellar Dominion. Submit to our authority, and you may continue your operations under our generous supervision." Wilson allowed himself a small smile. "This is Commander Wilson of the mining outpost MT-217. I'm afraid there must be some mistake. You've entered restricted space. Our warning beacons were quite clear about that." Reed's laugh was sharp and dismissive. "Beacons, those ancient relics. We are the Stellar Dominion. We go where we please. Your primitive operation is now under our protection. Be grateful for our mercy." "I see." Wilson exchanged glances with Banks, who was hiding a smile of her own. "In that case, I am required to issue one final warning. Leave this sector immediately, or we will be forced to take action." The alien bridge crew visible behind Reed burst into laughter. Their captain leaned forward, his features twisted in amusement. "You dare threaten the Dominion? Look around you, Einer. 6 warships against your little rock. What possible action could you take?" Wilson sighed and pressed a button on his console. Around the outpost, panels began to slide away from what had appeared to be simple mining equipment. Advanced weapon systems emerged, their surfaces gleaming with power that no pre-space age civilization could have created. "Sir," Banks called out, her fingers dancing across her console, "the flagship is powering up weapons. They're targeting our main reactor." "Let them," Wilson replied calmly. "Quantum shields are at full power. Show them why this sector is restricted." On the screen, Reed's smug expression faltered as his sensors detected the outpost's transformation. Warning alerts became visible on screens behind him, and his bridge crew scrambled at their stations. What is this?" Reed demanded, his voice losing its commanding tone. "These energy readings, they're impossible for a mining operation." "This isn't just a mining operation, Captain," Wilson explained, his voice still calm and professional. "This is a forward defense post of the Earth Defense Force. Those asteroids you've been scanning, they're not just rocks. They're our fleet." As if on cue, the asteroids around the outpost began to move. What had appeared to be natural formations split apart, revealing sleek warships hidden within their rocky shells. Dozens of vessels, each more advanced than anything in the Dominion's fleet, emerged from their hiding places. Reed's face had lost all color. But you're just miners. Your technology, it was primitive." "No, Captain," Wilson corrected him. "We just didn't see any reason to show you everything. Now, would you like to reconsider your position on leaving restricted space?" Before Reed could respond, new alarms blared on his bridge. The stars behind his ship seemed to ripple as the real Earth Defense Force began to arrive, their massive ships dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation. The trap had sprung, and the stellar dominion was about to learn why humans kept their space restricted. Captain Reed's hands gripped his command chair as the situation spiraled beyond his control. All around his flagship, human warships emerged from their asteroid hideouts, their dark hulls absorbing starlight like shadows given form. The mining outpost, once seemingly primitive, now bristled with weapon systems that his sensors couldn't even categorize. "Sir," First Officer Grant's voice shook slightly. "We're surrounded." Counting 30. No, 40 human vessels. Their energy signatures are off the charts. Reed watched as his tactical display filled with red dots, each representing a human ship that had been hiding in plain sight. The mining equipment they had dismissed as primitive now transformed before their eyes, revealing technology that made their own look ancient in comparison. "Launch fighters," Reed commanded, trying to maintain control of his crew. "Show these humans the might of the Dominion. We still outnumber their mining outpost." "Captain," the sensor officer interrupted, his face pale. "Those aren't just mining ships. Our scans, they indicate these are military vessels, capital ships. Their smallest craft is larger than our flagship." Through the bridge windows, Reed watched in horror as what he had thought was a simple asteroid split apart like a blooming flower. Inside was a massive human warship, its hull marked with symbols his translators couldn't decipher. The vessel's size dwarfed his entire fleet, and it was just one of many now revealing themselves. "Incoming transmission," Grant announced, from the human flagship. The main screen activated, showing Admiral James of the Earth Defense Force. The human commander sat calmly in his chair, wearing a simple dark uniform with minimal decorations. Unlike Reed's ornate bridge, the human command center was practical and efficient. "Captain Reed," James spoke, his voice carrying natural authority. "I see you've met our mining colony. I hope Commander Wilson was hospitable." Reed tried to mask his fear with anger. "This is an act of war. The Dominion will not stand for this deception." "Deception?" James raised an eyebrow. "We placed warning beacons. We marked this as restricted space. The deception was your choice to ignore those warnings." Suddenly, Reed's tactical officer shouted in panic. "Sir, the asteroids. They're moving. They're creating a containment field." The remaining asteroids that hadn't revealed ships were indeed shifting position, forming a massive sphere around the Dominion fleet. Energy fields sparked between them, creating a barrier that Reed's sensors indicated was impenetrable to their weapons. "Let me explain something, Captain," Admiral James continued, his tone almost friendly. "Those primitive warning beacons you ignored, they weren't to keep you out. They were to give you a chance to stay safe." As if to emphasize his point, one of Reed's support ships tried to flee. Its engines flared bright purple as it attempted to jump to faster than light speed. Instead, the ship's drive systems simply went dark, disabled by technology Reed couldn't comprehend. What is this?" Reed demanded, watching as more of his ships lost power. "This," James explained, "is why we restrict this space. Humanity could have conquered half the galaxy by now. Instead, we chose to contain ourselves, to protect other species from technology they might not be ready for." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Technology like what you're experiencing now." Reed's bridge crew watched in stunned silence as their weapons powered down one by one, disabled by invisible forces they couldn't detect or resist. Their mighty warships, pride of the Dominion fleet, hung powerless in space. "Sir," Grant whispered, "all ships report complete systems failure. We can't even raise our shields." "Now then," Admiral James said, his expression turning serious, "shall we discuss the terms of your surrender? Or would you prefer a demonstration of why we keep our real weapons hidden?" Reed looked at his dead consoles, his disabled fleet, and the massive human warships surrounding him. In that moment, he realized that his great invasion force hadn't sprung a trap. They had walked straight into a cage built by beings so advanced they could hide their true power in plain sight. The trap hadn't just sprung. It had closed completely, and the Stellar Dominion was about to learn the true meaning of restricted space. Admiral James stood from his command chair aboard the Earth Defense Force flagship Guardian, his movements calm and deliberate. The bridge around him hummed with quiet efficiency as his crew monitored the trapped Dominion fleet. Through the massive view screen, he could see Captain Reed's ships floating powerless in the containment field. "Status report," James ordered, watching as more Earth Defense Force ships emerged from hyperspace. "The containment field is holding at full strength, sir," Lieutenant Banks reported from her new position on the Guardian. "The Dominion fleet's weapons and engines remain disabled. Our quantum disruptors are working perfectly." James nodded, studying the tactical display. Dozens of human ships now surrounded the alien fleet, their advanced weapon systems still hidden beneath sleek, simple exteriors. The last thing he wanted was to show their full capabilities, unless absolutely necessary. "Open a channel to all Dominion vessels," he commanded. The communications officer complied, and James addressed the trapped fleet. "This is Admiral James of the Earth Defense Force. Your ships are disabled, your weapons are offline, and you are deep in restricted space. I am offering you one chance to surrender peacefully." On the main screen, Captain Reed's face appeared, his earlier arrogance replaced by barely controlled fear. You can't do this. The Dominion will send more ships. We will. You will do nothing." James interrupted calmly. "Look at your sensors, Captain. If they're still working, you'll notice we're using less than 1% of our available power. Would you like to see what happens at 2%? To emphasize his point, James nodded to his weapons officer. A small defense platform near the Dominion fleet activated a single weapon. A beam of blue energy, barely visible, touched one of the asteroids. The massive rock simply vanished, converted to base particles in an instant. Reed's face went pale. That's impossible. No weapon can." "That was our smallest point defense system, Captain," James explained. "We use it for clearing space debris. Would you like to see our actual weapons?" The bridge of the Guardian remained silent as everyone waited for Reed's response. Through the video feed, they could see the alien captain looking at his officers, desperately seeking options that no longer existed. First Officer Grant stepped into view behind Reed. "Sir," she said quietly, "perhaps we should consider their offer. We've seen only a fraction of their capability, and already." Before Reed could respond, alarms blared on his bridge. "Sir," his sensor officer shouted, "we're detecting massive energy signatures. More human ships." James allowed himself a small smile as the second wave of Earth's fleet arrived. The new ships were larger, their designs more obviously military. These vessels didn't bother hiding their true nature. They were warships built to protect human space from any threat. "Those," James explained to the increasingly terrified alien crew, "are our actual warships. What you've seen so far were just our border patrol vessels. The mining outpost you so casually dismissed. It's one of our smallest facilities." Through the view screen, the Dominion crew watched as hundreds of human ships took position around them. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy their entire fleet, and the aliens knew it. "I'll ask one more time, Captain Reed," James said firmly. "Surrender your vessels, and we will treat your crews with respect. Continue to resist, and we will be forced to demonstrate why we keep our space restricted." Reed slumped in his chair, the last of his defiance draining away. Around him, his bridge crew looked to him with pleading eyes. They had come expecting to find a primitive civilization to conquer. Instead, they had discovered an advanced species that had deliberately hidden its true power. Reed's voice cracked slightly. "I surrender my fleet to Earth Defense Force custody." James nodded, satisfied. "A wise choice, Captain. Now let's discuss why you entered restricted space and what the Dominion needs to understand about humanity's policy of containment." Despite surrendering, Captain Reed couldn't keep his hands from shaking as he watched the human boarding parties approach his fleet. The Earth Defense Force ships had launched small, sleek vessels that moved through space with impossible grace, ignoring the laws of physics as he understood them. "Sir," First Officer Grant reported, "the humans are requesting access to our main airlocks. Their scans, they've already mapped our entire ship. They know every deck, every room." Reed nodded numbly. Through the bridge windows, he could see the human vessels up close now. Their hulls seemed to absorb light in strange ways, making it hard to focus on them directly. What had appeared simple and utilitarian at a distance now revealed subtle complexities that spoke of technology far beyond the Dominion's understanding. The first boarding team arrived at the flagship's main airlock. The human soldiers wore armor that made them look almost casual, lacking the heavy plating and weapons the Dominion used. Yet Reed had no doubt these lightweight suits held power his sensors couldn't even detect. "Captain," the lead human officer spoke through their comm system, "please instruct your crew to remain at their stations. Our teams will secure each deck. Any resistance will be unfortunate." As the humans moved through his ship, Reed watched in growing dismay as his crew's weapons simply stopped working in their presence. Personal shields flickered and died. Even their emergency beacons went silent. On the tactical display, Reed could see similar scenes playing out across his fleet. The humans moved with practiced efficiency, their technology making the Dominion's best defenses irrelevant. "Look at their movement patterns," Grant whispered, studying the security feeds. "They're not even trying to hide their capabilities anymore." She was right. The human boarding teams walked through walls as if they were holograms, appeared and disappeared at will, and seemed to know exactly where every crew member was hiding. Their technology wasn't just advanced, it made the laws of physics optional. Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. "Sir," the sensor officer shouted, "one of our ships is powering up weapons. The Relentless is trying to fight back." Reed watched in horror as the Relentless, commanded by his most aggressive captain, brought its main guns online. The massive energy cannons, pride of the Dominion fleet, targeted the nearest human vessel. "No," Reed whispered, "don't." The Relentless fired, its energy beams lancing out toward the human ship. What happened next defied explanation. The beams simply curved away, as if space itself was bending around the human vessel. Then the attacking ship's weapons turned inward, their energy somehow reflected back through their own systems. The Relentless went dark, all power drained in an instant. The human ships hadn't even fired a shot. "Message from Admiral James," the communications officer announced, his voice shaking. The Admiral's calm face appeared on their screen. "Captain Reed, please remind your fleet that while we appreciate their spirit, further resistance will only damage their own ships. Our quantum field technology doesn't actually require us to fire weapons. Your own energy can be used against you." As if to demonstrate, one of the human ships created a visual display for the Dominion fleet. It showed how their quantum fields could redirect energy, bend space, and even alter time on a local level. The technology was so advanced it appeared magical to the aliens. "How?" Reed finally asked, his voice barely a whisper. "How did we not know? How did you hide all this?" Admiral James smiled slightly. "Captain, what you're seeing isn't even our latest technology. This is what we considered cutting edge 50 years ago. We keep our space restricted because we understand the responsibility that comes with power. Today's demonstration was meant to teach that lesson." Reed looked at his captured fleet, his disabled weapons, and the human ships that had defeated them without firing a shot. He finally understood. Humanity hadn't restricted their space out of weakness. They had restricted it out of wisdom. Captain Reed sat in a comfortable chair aboard the Guardian, Earth's flagship, feeling strangely calm despite being a prisoner. The room didn't look like a detention cell. It had large windows showing the stars, comfortable furniture, and even served him drinks that perfectly matched his species' preferences. Admiral James sat across from him, drinking what humans called coffee. Between them, a holographic display showed the Dominion fleet, now completely under human control. Reed's crews were being treated well, even given access to entertainment and communication with their families. "You're probably wondering why we're having this conversation," James said, setting down his cup. "Why we're not interrogating you in a cell or demanding information about the Dominion's defenses." Reed nodded slowly. "The thought had crossed my mind, Admiral." "The truth is, Captain," James leaned forward, "we already know everything about the Stellar Dominion. Your defenses, your fleet movements, your technology. We've known for decades." The hologram changed, showing recordings that made Reed's breath catch. Human stealth ships, completely invisible to Dominion sensors, moving freely through their most secure spaces. Observation posts disguised as space debris, monitoring their worlds. Even their most secret military bases watched for years without detection. "But why?" Reed asked. "If you're this powerful, why haven't you conquered us? Why restrict yourselves to this small sector of space?" James smiled. "Let me show you something." He waved his hand, and the hologram changed again. This time, it showed Earth's history, wars, destruction, the near extinction of humanity multiple times through their own actions. "We learned our lessons the hard way," James explained. "When we first developed space travel, we were like you, eager to expand, to conquer, to prove our power. But then we discovered something that changed everything." The hologram showed a small, primitive alien world. "We found life. Not just any life, but a young civilization, just beginning to look at the stars. And we realized we had a choice." "A choice?" Reed asked. "To be conquerors or guardians," James replied. "We could have taken their world easily. Instead, we chose to watch, to protect, to ensure they had the chance to develop on their own path." The display shifted again, showing hundreds of worlds, each with developing civilizations. Reed recognized some worlds the Dominion had marked for future conquest. "Your people have found 3 primitive civilizations in your expansion," James said. "We're currently protecting 27 within this sector alone. Worlds that deserve the chance to grow without interference." Reed felt his understanding of the galaxy shifting. "The restricted space is a sanctuary," James finished. "We have the power to control this entire arm of the galaxy. Instead, we chose to contain ourselves, to act as silent guardians rather than conquerors." Lieutenant Banks entered the room, carrying a data tablet. "Sir, the analysis of their ships is complete. Their crews are all accounted for and comfortable." James nodded. "Thank you, Lieutenant. Please begin preparations for Phase 2. Reed looked between them. "Phase 2. Captain," James said seriously, "we're not going to punish your people for this incursion. Instead, we're going to show you something that will change how the Dominion sees the galaxy forever." The hologram changed one final time, showing a massive structure hidden in the heart of restricted space. Reed's eyes widened as he recognized the design from ancient legends. That's impossible," he whispered. "The gateway of the ancients. The stories say it was destroyed millennia ago." James smiled. "No, Captain, it wasn't destroyed. It was protected. By us. And now you're going to understand why humanity chooses to restrict our space, and why power isn't always about conquest." Reed looked at the legendary structure, then back at James, finally understanding that he wasn't a prisoner. He was a student, about to learn why humanity had become the guardians of the galaxy's greatest secrets. The Stellar Dominion's High Council chamber fell silent as they watched the recording from Captain Reed's fleet. The massive screen showed their ships being disabled without a fight, human technology that defied their understanding, and the final revelation of humanity's true role in the galaxy. High Commander Stone, leader of the Dominion military, stood with his fists clenched. "This is impossible. No species could hide such power. No civilization could show such restraint." But the evidence was undeniable. More recordings played, showing human ships protecting primitive worlds from natural disasters, redirecting asteroids, and silently watching over developing civilizations. They saw human technology that could have conquered the Dominion in days, yet was used only to preserve and protect. Captain Reed stood before the council, his recent experience having changed him profoundly. Members of the High Council, what I saw in restricted space was beyond anything in our records. But it wasn't their technology that proved their power. It was their choice not to use it. The screens now showed the gateway of the ancients, the legendary structure that humanity had protected for thousands of years. Through it, Reed had seen wonders that the Dominion's greatest scientists had only dreamed of. The humans showed me why they restrict their space, Reed continued. They guard the gateway, yes, but they guard something far more precious, the right of every species to develop without interference. They could rule the galaxy, but they choose to watch and protect instead. First Officer Grant, standing beside her captain, stepped forward. The humans have provided us with proof of 27 developing civilizations in our expansion path. Worlds we would have conquered, species we would have enslaved. They showed us a better way. The council members watched as more data streamed across their screens. Humanity's ships could travel between dimensions, manipulate time itself, and reshape reality. Yet they used this power not for conquest, but for preservation. The humans have offered us a choice, Reed announced. We can continue our expansion, ignore their warnings, and face the consequences. Or we can join them as guardians, protecting those younger than ourselves while continuing our own development. High Commander Stone scoffed. Join them. Accept their restrictions. The Dominion bows to no one. They're not asking us to bow, Grant interjected. They're inviting us to grow, to learn what they learned, that true power isn't about control, it's about responsibility. The chamber's main screen activated one final time, showing Admiral James. The human commander looked at the council with calm confidence. Leaders of the Dominion, James spoke, your ships entered our restricted space, seeking to display your power. Instead, you witnessed ours. But the greatest power isn't in our weapons or technology. It's in our choice to restrict ourselves, to be guardians rather than conquerors. The council watched as James showed them more evidence of humanity's silent protection. Disasters prevented, wars avoided, civilizations guided safely through their early development. We offer you partnership, James continued, not submission. Your people have great potential. Join us in protecting the younger races. Learn why we choose to restrict our power rather than unleash it. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Some argued for war, despite the obvious futility. Others saw the wisdom in humanity's offer. But all of them understood that the galaxy was not what they had thought it was. Reed looked at the images of Earth's ships, remembering how they had defeated his fleet without firing a shot. We entered restricted space thinking we would show our power, he said quietly. Instead, we learned what true power really means. The High Council voted. The Stellar Dominion would accept humanity's offer. They would learn to be guardians rather than conquerors. They would understand why some space should remain restricted. And in doing so, they would finally witness humanity's greatest power. The power to choose wisdom over warfare, protection over dominion, and responsibility over conquest.